This is the UC Hunting Properties Podcast, your home for all things recreational land. Our goal, to help you stand on your investment. Hey guys, welcome back to the UC Hunting Properties Podcast. We are just about in the heat of it. It is late October. There's a big cold front blowing in, and we thought it would be no better time than ever to get you guys introduced to our friend Sam Bilhorn. So without further ado, Sam Bilhorn, straight out of Wisconsin.
Glad to be here, Kurt. Thanks for having me. It's fun to be on the podcast here today.
Well, we're glad you could make some time. I know this is a hectic time between balancing work and hunting, and you're a family man. So, Sam, give us a little background on you specifically. Obviously, you're kind of the head cheese of Whitetail Partners. So I guess I want the audience to know who you are first and foremost.
Sure. Thanks for that. So, my background growing up in Wisconsin, I've been immersed in the hunting culture ever since I was a child, and very blessed to have a large family farm that I've been able to hunt on and grow up in the woods and see all those things firsthand and all that great stuff. So I've been fortunate that way to grow up in that environment. Been hunting my entire life, and really a lot of self-taught experiences, good, bad, and ugly, which we all could share stories on, and the things we've learned on our properties. But about 10 years ago, I really took to it with habitat improvement, working the land on my own farm. And eventually one thing led to another, helping friends, helping family on other properties, eventually helping others I didn't know, and slowly working this into a business.
Yep.
And then 5 years ago, started off with Whitetail Partners as the name of my company. And initially just in consulting and helping people improve their property, primarily in that initial stage of design, layout, planning, helping improve properties. I, over the course of time, consulted in a lot of different states throughout the Midwest. I think I've been in 14 different states for whitetails now.
Wow.
And, just grew my experience with that, loving it. And eventually here, 3 seasons ago, adding some members to our team, and have steadily been growing our team at Whitetail Partners. We now have 8 consultants outside of myself that cover the nation. And meanwhile, during this time, I had the opportunity to connect with Travis Homley, picked up real estate license, as that was just complementary to a lot of the things I had been providing landowners.
Yeah.
And have been serving people now a couple seasons with that. And it's just blossomed into a great relationship I have with Travis, with UC Hunting Properties, and now bringing the two together, talking about how Whitetail Partners can help our clients and help our agents.
Well, we're number one. I feel blessed to have you on the team, Sam, because I know you're basically a walking encyclopedia of all things deer hunting and habitat, and even the strategy side of it, right? I mean, it's one thing to be able to identify which trees and shrubs to have and why to have them, but it's a whole nother to be able to strategize on strategically, using habitat features and obviously, like I said, introducing things. But appreciate that. Now, the one thing I was going to ask, Sam, and I think you know this, but I mean, prior to me getting involved heavily with Travis and UC Hunting Properties, I had a similar background to you where, it was for the love of the hunt, and it was, everything we were doing, living, breathing, sleeping, was to enhance that, right? Like, right. We're tore up with deer. We're deer nerds. You're from, I would argue, the number one whitetail state. I'm curious on, as you've developed Whitetail Partners, Sam, like, obviously now you have team members, and a huge coverage model. You could basically, consult anywhere in the country. Mm-hmm. Was most of it word of mouth? I mean, do you feel like it was mass marketing in how you grew your presence, or was it, people talk, like good things, spread?
Right. I mean, from the onset, when I was doing it myself, this was something I was doing on the side while having another career and so on. And what was super important to me was making sure quality was a top standard. I wanted at that time, I say we now because there's more of us.
Sure.
But, I wanted to have high quality deliverables, high quality planning. I have a background in engineering and
It
construction
shows.
and and consulting and all these things, and a love and passion for deer and land. You throw all that into a pot and stir it around, and this is what's come of it. And but back to my point of what I saw an opportunity within the industry too, and that I didn't see a lot of good high quality outputs. Like I say, the plans, the reports, the information, the direction. So many people, you give them a plan, they still need more
Yeah.
in terms of priorities and how do we go about doing this? How are we efficient with our investment? How are we enhancing the value of our property? All those things.
Yeah, yeah, and I think it obviously they go hand in hand, right? Because Sam, I've always said there's two different, I guess, trains of thought when I think of how you hunt a farm or whatever. There's truly a hunt plan, and why you're going somewhere, and we're gonna dive into this because I want to pick your brain a little. But I also think there's like a longer term habitat plan, and sometimes they do go hand in hand. But sometimes even like explaining the concept of which trees to keep and stuff to a landowner because it's building inherent value. Yes, you're enhancing the hunting, but you're also, you might be 10 years away, you might be 20 years away from being able to do a selective harvest where now all of a sudden you've created a bunch of ROI on that dirt and you've got to enjoy it along the way. So, I mean, of course, our tagline, stand on your investment. We're all about that, but we're also all about like how do you take an investment and enhance it? I mean, what are your thoughts on that, Sam? And like I said, sorry, I just threw a lot at you, but
No, that's great.
I mean,
Yeah, no,
like I said, there's two buckets or two trains of thought. I'm just curious on how you balance that.
they're both valuable and in varying amounts for each landowner. One of the things that I constantly preach, both in what we're talking about here with podcasts and social media, but specifically when I get at that kitchen table with that landowner, is what are your priorities? For some people, they have high priorities on their rent. Maybe it's crop rent. Maybe it's working towards having that timber harvest. Maybe it's all these things. We got to understand those values, because if that's a higher value for somebody than it is for turning it, say, open field development for whitetail habitat, we need to balance the two. And sometimes, it's usually we get to a point where there's a balance of taking back some of the fields to do development, like I'm describing. Perhaps for others, it's just focusing on timber, improving the quality of the habitat and the cover within that. And then it's what are they able to do with the land? For some, they can't touch those fields. Others, they have CRP contracts and these government programs that we got to work within those, and make sure that we're abiding by what those requirements are. Everything is custom, and to each person, both the things that they need to accomplish with their land and their goals for hunting and whitetails, they have to fit together. And that's so much of our planning is listening, is
Yeah.
asking good questions, hearing landowners and what they are looking to accomplish and meet their goals, and then customizing a plan to help them get there.
Well, and the one thing I learned along the way, and I kind of want your perspective on this. I mean, we've worked with landowners that, and I don't want to say ROI doesn't matter. You know what I
Mm-hmm.
mean? Like, I don't
Yeah.
think anyone would say money doesn't matter, but in the same, we've worked with clients where the ROI on their farm initially or annually or however you want to look at it is totally secondary. They want the hunting
Mm-hmm.
to be number one, number one, number one. And if that means, to your point, taking a perfectly productive ag field out of a cash rent scenario, and whether they're putting it in CRP or whether they're, planting trees, who knows, food plot, they're okay with that, So I think there's a weird balancing act there, and I do think that it's going to change depending on the customer or the client.
That's right. And really, it depends on what the end goal is. And a lot of this, to get back to the real estate side of things, is if it's their goal is an investment as well as enjoying the hunting. To enhance value, we're looking at it and say, what is the greatest purpose of this ground? And for a lot of these properties we're dealing with, especially if they're a little bit smaller parcels, is to turn them around as recreational properties. And the highest return we can create with that is to make a high quality a whitetail property with a strong resume, with success that's been proven, and then obviously all the improvements that go along with it, the food plots, the corridors, the stands, the blinds, all these things that we get jazzed up about and doing and building,
Yep.
that is going to provide that return and also make it show really, really well when it comes time to list that property.
Sam, on that note, because I mean, I'm with you 100%. Like, to me, it's always let me back up. I guess I would say I used to be hunt first. Like, don't care. I want to kill big bucks. And everything I did revolved around that. And it's actually, I've kind of come like full circle on it. Now I'm to the point where I do look at land like it is an investment. It's a long-term investment. And all these enhancements that I'm making to help kill big deer are now adding to the value. So curious on your perspective, but is there a single thing or like a top component of laying out a farm or a design of a farm that you think drives the value the most?
Really, it's unique to the buyer a lot of times, because what one design and plan and improvement, set of improvements for a property for one owner may not be exactly what the next one wants. But there's certainly things that show a quality property. And really, when a buyer is looking, they're looking to say, what makes this a quality hunting property?
Yep.
Well, I mentioned the word resume before. I'm big on building resumes, and that can be as simple as having quality trail cam pictures, not just in getting a big buck, but having a really high quality setup and picture and all of that. That's the scouting side and showing the potential. But then having the execution side, you mentioned hunt first, and I think about that sometimes too, because and I do a lot of properties in hill country. I can point to some of the highest odd stands in a relatively short amount of time.
Yeah.
Even without improvements, right? We have natural funnels and pinch points, and we talk about this time of year when we get all excited for the pre-rut and the rut.
Right.
There's places that I know I'm going to, or I'm going to direct somebody, say that's a great place to hunt, and hopefully then they're demonstrating that success that's going to show it. So that's on the.
We're going to have that
resume
conversation. Trust me, it's on the list for
Yeah.
today, Sam.
Yeah, we're getting there.
Yeah, and like I said, I know that was maybe a fairly loaded question, but I mean, at the end of the day, now especially being tied into the real estate thing, I think that enhanced values, honestly, the bigger play. I think the good hunting will come by default
Sure.
with enhancing a farm, and when that happens, now you're getting the best of both worlds. You've created this buck factory. And with the right process, you're saving those pictures. You're cataloging those pictures. Like, things become, I guess I'm just going to say predictable.
Yeah.
I'll give you an example, Sam. I have a farm I couldn't run cameras on this year, but I have the previous 3 seasons. So I have a lot of intel, and I have a catalog, I don't know, 600, saved pictures deep probably. And I am hedging a bet. Friday morning, given the wind condition, the barometric pressure, the fact that obviously we're into November or early November, I know what a particular buck has literally done the last 3 years. I don't have any idea from this year because I haven't ran a camera there, but guess where I'm going?
You know where to go.
Well, and I guess that's kind of a testament to this whole conversation. And if people aren't thinking that logically or like planning that far in advance to be strategic with what they're doing with their farm, I don't know how you would strongly push or encourage that, because that is what makes, when somebody sells a turnkey farm, you better be able to back up what makes it turnkey. And to me, predictability is number one.
Yeah, that's right. And when you have established improvements, and in my mind also goes to time horizon. What is your turnaround going to be on a property? There are improvements. If you have 1 or 2 seasons, there's a list of improvements I might point towards more in the realm of stands, blinds, and food plots than if you have many years to do that. And in which case I'm looking at tree plantings, improving that quality over the longer term, through growing new trees and all of that. that we can have a lot more tools in our toolbox if we have the time to do it. But yeah, pointing back to an improved hunt plan, quality access routes. Enough can't be said about demonstrating nice, neat mowed or sprayed paths to stands and blinds that just show a property really well, but it's because it executes
Mm-hmm.
what we're trying to accomplish with hunting so well.
Well, because you can have the best farm in the world, right? It can have every component you're looking for, and if you can't get in and out of there without blowing the place up, you probably got 3 or 4 good sits a year, and guess what? Your neighbor's probably killing that deer, right?
That is a common tale right there. You bet.
I'm with you. Well, and I think,
Yeah.
and I'm guilty as far as I've been there, but I mean, I think in the grand scheme of things, there's really 2 components that matter, and it's food and pressure. And I've always said you need a lot of one and not much of the other. And food's broad, right? I'm not just talking about food plots. I'm talking about browse and the whole gamut of what a deer needs. But really, if you whittle it down, it's food and pressure. You got to have a lot of food, and you got to really minimize the pressure if you want to hold mature deer.
Mm-hmm.
So I don't mean to oversimplify it, but Sam, walk us into, obviously, like you said, you're fairly new into the real estate realm of things, but obviously you've been part of lots of deals through the years. You've seen this happen with your clientele, which I think is why you got into real estate in the first place. What's your experience with that? I mean, like, and when I'm asking about experience, we know there's a lot of clientele that are buying farms as an investment vehicle. They're parking money, and they're getting to enjoy it along the way. But in the back of their mind, they're just, literally building that value and building the deer resume because they know full and well all intentions are that farm's going down the road. So talk to us about that a little bit. And I kind of hate the term flipping farms, but I'm saying it that way because, in my opinion, these guys are always trading up. Is that what you're seeing with your client base?
Yeah, I think that's very common. Usually, a simple example, and have had this happen now in helping people move on from properties. Is we get connected on the consulting side, review their property, talk about the improvements, and maybe they're starting to recognize that they have a limited ceiling in what they can do. They can only make this property so good because of what they have. Well, maybe they do those things, increase a little bit of value, and list the property, sell it, and then move down to move up to a maybe it's a better area, maybe it's a better quality setup, maybe it's a bigger property, whatever those things are to try and accomplish that, and then they're making those improvements again. So this is a cycle, and I refer to it not so much as flipping, but it's a portfolio, right? We're improving, we're letting that value increase, and then we're moving on to another one. And sometimes it's multiple properties, right? They have properties that are in different stages of development,
Yeah.
and understanding what the value is for them. And sometimes there's one that comes along the way that they love. It's been a quality property for them, and they might hold it longer.
The legacy farm, yeah.
Yeah, but evaluating those farms for their ability right off the bat, and then also, what got me into real estate, as you were just mentioning before, was I had clients coming to me and saying, "Is this a good one to buy?" Evaluating properties to say, "Is this a good investment? Am I starting with high potential here? Maybe not the existing state, but is there high potential?" And after enough of those valuations, I wanted to be more involved in the deal, which is why I picked up my license, and other members of our team have as well.
Yeah, it's kind of a no-brainer in my opinion, especially when you can do it unbiased, but also understanding, real estate laws, the code of conduct and ethics and everything that goes with it. But this conversation, I got to mention this, Sam. I don't know if you caught the episode we just did with Greg Glessinger. It was right ahead of the Iowa bow opener. It must have been right at the tail end of September when we had Greg on. But, Greg's a living example of somebody that goes next level with everything they're doing with management and stuff. And he had a particular deer, they called him Nuke. and it's been like I don't even know. And I'm not exaggerating. I think they have 5 or 6 years of trail camera and shed history, and this deer is ridiculous, dude. It was like Greg never. I know Greg well enough to know when he said, "Hey, I'm hunting a deer," I was like, "Oh my gosh," like I can't wait to see what this thing is. And I had I had fully expected that he would shoot that deer opening week because we did have a little cold front, to coincide with opener here in Iowa. And the deer was MIA. And I can't remember the exact date, but when we had Greg on, he's like, dude, I had him every day, from July on, and now all of a sudden he's MIA. So we're like, oh, he's on acorns. You're trying to tell yourself whatever you can tell yourself, but the reality is they just picked him up, I don't know, 48 hours ago, 3 days ago, for sure victim of EHD. And it's like 240. Like, it is an absolute stomper. So yeah, if you haven't seen that, go out to Huntworks and
I'll check it out.
Yeah, it'll make you cry.
A tough story.
You'll be sick.
Disease is tough that way.
Have you guys, not to completely shift gears, but have you dealt with much EHD in Wisconsin this year, or have you heard any rumblings of it?
I've heard rumblings, but not confirmed or anything. Certainly nothing of experience on my own properties or client properties too much. There's been more rumblings than in the past that may just be a talking point when a deer doesn't show up on camera. So
sure,
I'm not a biologist, and nor do I know the details of that and I don't like to talk too much on those things without knowing actual data.
And I hate to say, I think most of it's opinion based, but I mean, it does seem, some of the big whitetail states, you talk about southern Iowa, you talk about Kansas, those are probably the two that I know have been hit or affected the most. And it's prevalent in Iowa. Southern Iowa's getting beat up with EHD again this year. So it sucks. And I feel bad for Greg. So here's my shout out to Greg that, we're here praying for you, buddy.
That's a tough hit. Mine are not diseased, but my number one and number two both had one snapped off his right side around late August.
Well, that'll save his life.
Yeah. Well, and this is, it's sad, but at the same time, there's great hope for next year. These were both, one was 4 and one was 5.
Okay.
The other one has now snapped off both of his foot-long G2s. So I'm kind of I cried for a while and talked to the neighbors, and I think everybody's come to the fact of we got to watch out for this one and not put them on the ground if we can avoid it.
Right. Well, yeah, full disclosure, the deer I was just talking about that I'm going to go in after on Friday morning, 3 years running, Sam, and this was the year I said I got to kill him early because literally by 5 days into November, he will be beat to hell. Like,
sure, that happens, right?
I bet he was missing. I passed him on November 3rd last year, and I bet he was already missing 40 to 50 inches. So I was like, I can't shoot him like this. I'm not doing this. But
no, and for me, when he lost one tine, I said, well, that's a good taxidermist for. And but then when he lost 2, I was like, I just can't.
You just throw your hands up in the air. Yeah, I get it. Let's jump to the hunt side right now because, like I said, we're sitting here looking. Halloween's tomorrow. November 1st is basically here. So I would always call this kind of the pre-rut, which is hands down, bar none, my favorite time as far as like the action and what's happening in the deerwood, Sam. But big cold front pushing in. We're going to see like a 25 to 30 degree temp change from today's high to tomorrow's high. So like in my mind, I guess my prediction would be tomorrow may be the best day in the woods. And I actually think tomorrow plus Friday because that barometric pressure is just going to shoot through the roof. I want your perspective on, with the hand we're dealt right now, where are you prioritizing your sits? What's your strategy? What would you coach a guy?
Yeah, no, I agree with everything you said. In fact, it was at least a week ago I saw this weather pattern and said that's it right there. I mean, I'm big on pre-rut. We talked before about predictability. For me, with designing plans and habitat, I look at travel routes. I am huge on developing a pattern from A to B,
Yep.
and intercepting the buck on those routes. No better time to do that than the pre-rut. Bucks are covering a ton of ground. They are, freshening scrapes, going down that corridor, going to the next one. Long story short, the one over my shoulder here, and I got that in the antler there. He's got the scrape, the licking branch that he was on.
Nice.
I have pictures of that buck, and this was late October 25th, 700 yards away, 500 yards away, 300 yards away, and at the tree that I shot him at, I had a picture of him on the scrape when the arrow went.
That's cool.
And that's why I love pre-rut so much. Now, I'll say that to me, that's usually happening in October 20 something. So maybe it's early 20s, mid 20s. I'd say we're getting a touch later now that they're starting to cruise more. Maybe they're picking up a hot doe, and we're getting into, now with this weather, especially, it's going to increase that, just covering a ton of ground. So the opportunity you have on that recluse buck that maybe has been hunkered down, I think that, to your point, and the weather and the time, now is the time they're going to get on their feet. And in my mind, and I mentioned before, my top two are off the list. So I got a few others now, and I went off to other places. I got a permission property I can hunt on too, and I have some new targets, which is exciting, and it feels like you're jumping back in the arena in a different way. But now I'm looking at it and saying I don't have the history, the details. I have some good setups, and I know that the possibility of them being there during this weather event, during this time of year, the probability is high. It's as good as any time. So this is, if we start flipping the switch to time in the stand. And that is an important thing to realize as we turn the calendar to November, at least where we are in the country, that, getting to those high cruising locations for me in hill country, my favorite is to be 2/3, 3/4 of the way up on a ridge and up a hill.
Yep.
And getting that top line of movement above the drainages that form on the hills. That's my favorite place to be, and that's where I'll be spending Thursday and Friday.
Yeah, so you'll be sitting a ridge, and I guess this is an opinion thing. I mean, are you going to be sitting transition, or are you bumping up to the beds? Like, where are you sitting? I mean, I get you're on the ridge.
Yeah. Well, no, so in this particular property, this is a huge ridge system. When I say huge, I mean miles.
Okay.
This is a big ridge system. So I'm not on the ridge. I'm just down from it. My experience and what I witness is where these drainages start, where you get the
almost the saddle effect. Yeah.
Yep. Yeah, the pinch points that form in hill country with those drainages, they're running on the tops of those. I don't think they like being as exposed running the ridge per se, but picking a side, wind dependent. And I have one location, I got two stands on either side of the ridge, and I'll go there. And that's just waiting on this miles long ridge system to produce that buck that's cruising.
Just out looking. Yeah.
Yeah.
All right. So they heard it here first. Sam says
there too.
Sit the transition area between the beds, be off the ridge. It's all good advice. And then any prediction, Sam, from you for your season? I mean, are you going to kill tomorrow? Are you killing Friday? Like, what are you holding out for? I mean, your top two are gone.
Sure. Yeah. So, well, I guess I would pause here and say my season's already been a huge success. I was with my son.
That's awesome.
Killed a great buck earlier this year. I get emotional just thinking about it. It was fantastic.
That's why we do this, man.
Yeah. Like there were some some stress and tears over because we had to wait overnight.
Sure.
So we had a sleepless night. But went in and found the buck the next morning. It was all good. But so that was awesome. And now for me, having a couple of those targets off the list, hunting some properties I'm not on as consistently, I feel like for me, it's a little bit of a rewind. I'm going into some new places or newer places that are highly probable for this time of year. So I'm still super optimistic, but a little bit more unknowing. It kind of reminds me of the time of back to only SD card cameras, or even before that, where you had
kind of
just
gets
a few
me excited, truthfully.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm really enjoying that feeling of the way hunting used to be, and still excited for being on a highly predictable hunt. I wouldn't be surprised if I kill a buck tomorrow. That
Yeah,
very well could happen,
yeah.
or Friday, or Saturday. You like that? This is the time that it happens. I just hope I'm on the right side of the ridge.
Right on, right on. Well, if not, you will be the next day, right?
Yep, right on.
Good, good, good. Well, Sam, we're gonna make this or keep this one short and sweet, but I wanted to get you introduced to the crew and let everyone know we're starting to work with Whitetail Partners, and God knows we got some plans that we're working out. So more to come on that. But Sam, keep us in the loop. Take some good pictures
Yeah,
when you slay the giant, and we'll just stay in touch, buddy.
I really appreciate being here, Kurt. It's fun to start this journey.
Likewise. Take care.
Thank you.